Coffee Break Show today. Today we are going to transform your results by transforming how you speak and use your words. Today we have Terry Short on, and we're going to blow your mind. We'll be right back. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm. Terry Short, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I can't even tell you. I am super excited to unpack and get geeky with this conversation and have a lot of impact today. Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I was just already getting jazzed up with that music.
Thank you. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about Terry, because first off, I love what she does for a living. Terry Short, she's a human potential developer. Now, she's been a coach of some capacity her entire career, but she has more than 30 years of leadership experience. She has a master's in business admin and healthcare management and a professional coaching certification as well. This person has decades of experience that is going to help you learn a couple of new things. But what's really cool is that she is also an author, and she is the author of a book that I think is I can't wait to read it. It's called The Words We Choose, Your Guide to How and Why Words Matter in Helping Others Become Their Best Selves. Now, I am so big on this, and I'm wondering, how did you get into this? How did you write this book? What did you notice? How did this start for you?
So funny, when I think about being on a podcast like this, I think, I wonder if my parents listen to it, but they could be live on Facebook right now. Because if they were answering that question, they would say, well, she talks a lot. Maybe that's how she got interested in the words we choose. But seriously, Vickie, had a career in hospitality with Four Seasons Hotels back in my 20s and into my early 30s. And then I had my own business, and then I doing leadership development and training. And then I segued into healthcare, which was just a huge blessing to be able to use my skills to help the vulnerable, right? And so improving the patient, physician, and employee experience. What ends up, whether you're in hospitality or in healthcare or any business, the words you choose are incredibly important to how you interact with others, how you interact with your guests, with your patients. So I said, I'm going to write a book about that. And I did.
Wow, that's fantastic. So let's talk about 3 areas that you think are maybe, I know somebody's already saying, this might, there she is, better half right here. Welcome, Terry. And amen to that last thing, that healthcare thing, the words you use are so important. And I want you to say more about what that means to you. What does it mean when you talk about that?
Yeah, well, let me go back to, hospitality. When somebody is asking you for something, how you respond, back in the day, there started to be this phrase, no problem. And I would think to myself, well, I didn't think it was a problem to get 2 extra pillows delivered to my room, right? Yeah. And so somebody would put it in my head, and I started to pay attention to the words that someone chose to say and how I heard that or what it meant to me. And then by the time I get into healthcare and I hear patients, I hear clinicians or other, people in the hospital say things to patients, you can see the patient's face glaze over and they think, what does that mean? Because they're hearing it one way. They're not hearing what you're saying. And so there's a disconnect. And so it's not all about the words you choose. It's about the body language, the tone, the interaction. When you read the book, if there's a listening component, so you package all together to how we communicate with each other. And in my book, the very first quote is from Tom Kenyon. We are creating the world by how we speak to each other. That's what it means to me.
Yes. And I like that view as well, because one of the things that helped me a lot is nobody actually discovers or really thinks about their languaging, like where they learn to speak, how they learn to speak. It's you just grow up and you're like, mama, dada, and then pretty soon you have sentences. But there's a form of thinking and a form of assumption that you have in your head based on the meanings you learned as you were growing up. And so, what's interesting about what you said is what it means to you or what it doesn't mean to you, and what it means to them and what it doesn't mean to them is vastly different. So maybe the nurse practitioner or the occupational therapist, somebody in that healthcare system, thinks they're being clear and have clarity, and the patient is just like, what? And
Right.
that happens so much, and it happens everywhere, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in hotels, whether you're whatever. What are 3 tips you can do other than everybody buy the if you're a professional and you want to get better and have better communications, because better communications is better money, full stop. That's the number one way we get better at getting money is good communications. Get that book. But
Yeah.
outside of that, what are 3 things people can work on to become aware of and speak better or clearly or help the receiver receive the message better as well?
All right. Well, I have many more than 3 tips, but we're going to start there because you asked for 3. So I want to talk about individual words related to what you said about the lack of clarity, right? The person says something, but then someone doesn't know what they mean. So think about the words that offer a lack of clarity. Words such as probably, might,
Yeah.
should. When you offer those types of words, when leaders offer those types of words, people are going, whoa, wait a minute. We probably are going to do that. We'll probably meet our Q4 goals. What's the probably about it? Or we might do this, or we might follow up with this procedure for your leg. Well, okay, might. Like, see how that offers it? It offers a lack of clarity, just straight up. And then when someone says should, so I'm offering 3, you asked for 3, so I'm going to give you 3 words that minimize clarity. When someone says we should do this, then they're taking the ownership out of it, right? When I say our team should do X, I'm not owning why we should do that. I'm suggesting that we should maybe because somebody else said we should, or sometimes we do things
Ah,
in our life because we believe we should. And when that's the case, we're not owning the outcome. We're not owning the reason behind it. So those are 3 quick ones for change those words so you know that you're going to be more clear.
this is so interesting because as you said that, I was thinking there's probably boatloads of those kinds of words that we use that create maybe it's really clarity, a lack of clarity that creates a lack of clarity. And one of the things you said that I thought was interesting is it creates doubt when you say should, and you're not being responsible for the actual decision. So
Right.
let's say you're middle management, because usually your marching orders comes from upper management into middle management. And when you say something like, the company thinks we should da, 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 because da, 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 da. Um, is there a point at all where there is a better way or a clearer way of suggesting that? I mean, where should is appropriate is just never appropriate?
Right. Well, thank you for asking me this because I feel like no one ever goes deeper like this. We're just going to go deeper in. So to take that middle management person, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I want to back up from that. I'm the middle management person. I get this
Mhm.
directive from above, and I translate that into we should this. First of all, make no doubt, I am hereby creating a we they culture, straight up, because I'm saying
Yeah.
like they said, and now we should, and so that nobody wants that. We want alignment. We want alignment in the workplace. So now I'm offering should because I don't own it and I don't understand. So that middle management's first job is to return back up to whomever that was and seek that clarity. Tell me more about why this is important and what benefit this has to the organization or how this aligns with our values. And so you dig a little bit deeper, and we'll get to that because I want to talk about how to ask the right questions. But you peel back the layers of this decision and what's behind it. And then and only then are you able to go back and say, we have an opportunity to do X. And here's how this will align with our mission and values, or here's how this will benefit the team or our customers or what have you. And then there's no should about it, right?
Yeah.
I've owned it.
Yeah.
I've owned it, and I've rolled it out in a way. And for sure, Vickie, this should thing rolling around in what I call your personal podcast, your internal narrative. You've got your headset on, you're listening 24/7, 3:00 in the morning, that kind of thing. That should come in there to the personal podcast hugely disruptive, because again, I'm relying on external resource that's indicating that I should do something. Yeah.
This is fantastic, because one of the things I realize is, and for all you people who are sellers out there that make your money, I sell high ticket offers, or I sell cars, or I sell this, etc. The reason you memorize those scripts, those help you avoid these mistakes that she's talking about. But after a while, those scripts won't work. When you're really trying to sell at a high proficient level, you're going to have to be able to create trust and be able to create clarity. And I realize right now, so many times, well, this should help you do this, and this should help you do that. And some of the languaging we, use, well, this could probably, you could probably utilize this, and it should help you. But all you're creating there is distrust, or it's like you're creating erroneousness where somebody can't target that thing. And languaging and sales, that is the most important thing. How do you create trust? Do you have words that create trust in conversation that you use? And you've explained what words don't create trust. Do you have what does create trust?
Absolutely. Because I see those words as minimizing. I'm glad you called it out with those in sales and with everybody. But when we're in sales and we're saying words like that, we're minimizing and limiting. Both our own belief in our ability when we say certain things, and then what we're offering to the client. So we're going to flip that around, and we're going to have what I call the replacement words. So we might be able to do this, ends up being we will, we can, right? We are capable, or we will meet this target or this goal. And that's the same as should. And so even if it's in my own mind and I say, I should really do this, I pause. And first of all, that's actually key to it. Before you're replacing the word, is that I call it practice the pause. Pause long enough to make the connection between what's in your head and what's in your heart, so that what comes out of your mouth is in alignment. And when you do that, you're not going to have the shoulds and the mights and the probably, or pretty sure, I'm pretty sure this. Vickie, I write these words down that people say, so you're going to abolish those. But what happens, you hear them, where they float up in your head before they come out of your mouth. I'm a very quick speaker, and I can still take that nanosecond to go, whoop, what's in my heart, what's my intention, and now what comes out of my mouth. So pause long enough to have that alignment. I want to inspire people. So if I'm going to elevate and inspire, I'm going to speak in terms of will and can and our capabilities. And so much more forward thinking. And I have the kicker phrase of them all. Are you ready for that? You get to, as opposed to you have to. So that's
I'm so big on that. That is like, I grew up with, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I always catch myself, oh God, I said I have to again. I want to say I get to. I really agree with you there. That there's a whole energy shift that happens when you say get to, then there's a bit of gratitude behind I get to.
That's exactly right. You're coming from a place of gratitude and more abundance than sort of lack of. So let's talk about a couple of key examples there. One is, pretty much my whole life, I've heard people say that picking up the kids after school is a have to, or going to their game, the soccer game. I have to go to Joey's game today, or I have to pick up the kids. Myself, as somebody whose kids are in their 20s, not sure how that happened, but the reality is you get to do that. You get to connect with them. You
Yeah.
get to have them in the car with you for X
Yep.
amount of time and ask these powerful questions. And so, Vickie, I actually had a hospital CEO that turned around the entire culture of his facility by changing from have to get to. That's it. That's how he did it.
Beautiful.
He himself, he didn't say, we're all going to say to and have to now. Nope. I did some coaching and we talked about the difference and the energy and the gratitude and to connect to purpose when you're thinking about what you get to internalize that. And he came forward, he's profiled in the book a bit. He came forward to the team and he started speaking in terms of what we get to do. We get to recognize this new Joint Commission rule because it enables us to keep our patients safe instead of we have to comply with this rule now.
I love that. I love that. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting how you can shift the entire culture by you can transform your office culture by languaging in a different way. And that was a perfect example of moving from have to and get to. And I definitely am putting that on my list to become more mindfully aware of, because that's a powerful tool. I get to. And I want to go a little bit deeper, Terry, because this is one of the things that I find, I have 3 companies, and that means I deal with people all the time. I'm dealing with people. One of the things that I find most challenging is when I become defensive or somebody else becomes defensive. Because when I become defensive, I lose discernment and I lose my reasoning. You're completely drowning in whatever story you told yourself in that moment. Like, they don't like me. I don't want this. And there's like a nanosecond before that happens. And you're so defensive, you can't hear or be heard. You're just, and I want to know, when there's defensiveness in the moment in a conversation, do you have some tools that you can use to A, monitor yourself, or B, ask something of somebody else that helps diffuse it in a way that's where we're open again and we can be on the same page, even if the conversation is tough? I mean, the words are meant to help you get through tough conversations and easy conversations in order to create outcomes that are more positive, or an outcome where you achieve a success or an outcome you wanted. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that gets back to the energy. So I'm going to do this from both angles. So you're the defensive, the person who feels defensive going in, and the person conversing with them, that when we can sense that and ask some good questions, help pull the person out of it. Right. But let's say right now I'm the defensive person. So first of all, it's a physical feeling. You can feel yourself start to feel defensive. Right?
It's strong.
It's an energy thing. So start there. Start there. So I say, practice the pause, have a mindful moment, maybe a deep breath in. Here's my most favorite thing these days. It's just the rubbing of my 2 fingers together. Comes out of positive intelligence. And so feeling the ridges on my fingers. So now I'm about to go in this conversation, and I know that I have the propensity to be defensive because this topic has been lighting me on fire and such. I could do this right now under the table, right? And so I create my own trigger.
Yes, that's cool.
Center myself, right?
I know my audience and I are doing this right now. Everybody's doing this.
So and do it with such focus and intention that you can feel the ridges on the thumb, and you can feel the ridges. By the time you're doing that and really thinking about it, the point is to then trigger yourself to settle and to get back to that place of discernment. So here's what happens. Now I'm going to geek out on the neuroscience of it with you, okay? Which is not in the book. It's next book coming. That we know from neuroscience now that our our go-to way from conditioning, from what our parents told us, from how we grew up, this and that. When something, a topic, you talked about that before, but like a pattern creates itself, we end up on what I call the yellow brick road. So now we're going down the yellow brick road, and the yellow brick road is the go-to way that we respond to this thing or this
Yeah.
topic. And it's well laid, and we're always on it. When we do this, when we do some sort of trigger to ourselves to redirect, that's when we take a deep breath and we come up with a word choice that sets us on a different path. Now, immediately it might seem like a tiny little tunnel we're going through instead of yellow brick road. But the idea is that you yourself center yourself and say, whoa, wait a minute, and have a moment about what's my intention. So a couple of key things. One is the centering, happens in a nanosecond. Two is assessing what is my intention. My intention is not to be defensive. My intention is to further understand this thing or this person's point of view, right?
Yes.
So that's how I do it with me. But then if I'm trying to help you and I can sense, if I'm in the conversation, I'm leaning in, I can sense that you're getting defensive, then I as well might center myself and say, I might ask you a probing question, Vickie, that helps. Like I might say to you, help me understand what you're thinking right now, or tell me more about how. So if it's okay now, I'll transition to some of those key questions. Would that be all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that to ask really powerful probing questions, they should begin with what or how. And then the phrase that I love is tell me more. So the reason for that, Vickie, is that when we say why, we are implying judgment. And even if we don't intend to imply judgment, it's sometimes we say, why did you vote for that person? Or why did you not finish doing this? It sounds like judgment to the other person, whereas that might not be our intention at all. Whereas when I say, tell me more about the person that you voted for, or what's most beneficial to you in this coming election, or what have you, how, I'm asking from a place of curiosity and true interest. If I start my questions with what and how. Same thing goes with the kids I pick up from school. Now they're in the car, I'm asking them what and how questions, not questions that could be answered with fine or yes or no, right? And then once the person answers that, I challenge all of my clients that I coach to lean in, to listen to the answer, and then force themselves to say, tell me more. And when the person who's defensive or coming from any place of, distrust, let's say, because that was the topic, that's how I build trust. I'm leaning in and I'm coming from a place of curiosity, non-judgmental. That's how I build the trust.
Wow. I want to be as transparent with you, Terry, as I can be. I think that you have probably named something. I bet my productivity and my culture is going to change right now. And I want to tell you why. Because I always ask why. How come you did this? Why did you do this? Because I always want to understand how they think. And oftentimes I realize I'm triggering my entire team all the time by asking them why, and not tell me more about why, or tell me more about your thoughts behind this. I'm not being clear. So I'm going to tell my team this right now. I'm going to invite you to call me out on that and say, are you asking me why, or did you want me to know this? I'm going to do it right now. It's a habit I want to transform. And Terry, I'm telling you, it's so insightful. That's why I was like, wow, when you said it, it's that catching yourself when you ask, why did you do this? And why have you done, and why it can be very defensive. And you don't realize that's not what you're actually wanting, or you're not making your request clear enough for them to answer it without feeling defensive. Oh God, that was the $10,000 thing. So listen, I know there are a lot of CEOs out there, a lot of business owners that you're just asking why, what was the thought process behind this? And if you reimagine yourself asking a different question in a different way, what you're doing, that Terry, this is why I said my company is going to go up 30%, is because I have now shifting that question open them up to share their ideas with me in a more liberal way. Like they're not so, hi, what if this is the wrong idea, or, the why question. Holy smoke, that was a $10,000 truth bomb right there. Thank you for that so much. I that's huge. That's huge. And if you're
Mhm.
listening right now, I'm going to ask you to go in a little bit deeper and get that book. I started this show today telling you that communication was the number one way that money comes in. It is. If you can't communicate your problem, what it solves, what your product solves, what the problem is for the client, how the high ticket offer is going to benefit them, you're losing money. The key is always improving on your ability to communicate. And that was incredible. Thank you for that. Seriously, thank you for that. And my team, I'm serious if I ask you why, you are allowed to call me out. Thank you very much.
Well, let me tell you the caveat to that for your Six Sigma folks that are listening. And I'm actually been trained in the lean, the Virginia Mason lean. So
Yeah.
in that scenario, for processes, for assessing processes, you do the 5 whys. That's a very specific thing.
Yes.
Why 5 times?
She's got that
Process
Six Sigma
related.
black belt going on.
Yeah, yeah. So process related. This is when we're getting into building trust and communicating. One-on-one meetings. So you might think of this too, Vickie, with your team. When the leaders that I coach, we talk a lot about squeezing the most out of the one-on-one meetings. So asking what and how questions. The first being, what's a win that we can celebrate since we spoke last? So that you're conversing about what's positive and what's working well first
Yeah.
and foremost,
Yeah.
right? What can we
Beautiful.
celebrate? So you'll see. I mean, you'll go like this sometimes when you start to hear yourself say the why question and then change it up to what or how, and then lean in and say, "Tell me more."
Terry, I'm so geeking out right now. My mind is blown. And I have this, I wrote in one of my books, I can't even remember which one it was now off the top of my head, but in one of my books, I am hiking with a friend and we're way up in the Colorado mountains. And I I like to hike quietly. I like to hear the nature. I don't want to just have incessant talking. I just like that peaceful quiet and listen to the birds and everything else. And it was a beautiful day and it was spring and we were way up, probably about, I don't know, somewhere between 9 and 10,000 feet up. So there was still in springtime snow patches. And I was hiking, and every time that I got to a snow patch, I would walk carefully through it. And the person behind me said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to be careful so I don't slip and fall." Now, I can't tell you how much I heard that growing up. You don't realize how your languaging is affecting your outcomes. And so
Right.
they looked at me and they said, "That's probably not the most supportive thing you could say to yourself, that you were going to be careful so you don't slip and fall." And I said, "Okay, what do you think I should say?" And they said, "Tell yourself you're graceful and sure footed." And I was like, brilliant, because what I found was what I was asking for and what I wanted were two different things. I
Right.
wanted to be graceful and sure footed as I went through hiking. And I was asking to be careful so I didn't slip and fall.
Right.
And we don't see that we're asking for two different things. And in that thing, this is why I wanted to pull this apart with you, because I
Mhm.
think it's so important to assess what you're actually asking for. Because sometimes we start talking and we don't even know what we want. And if you
That's right.
don't know what you want or the intention, because you just talked about intention in that moment, and I'm wondering, how is it that we create intention and really look at you're so most people are unconscious about what they're saying to themselves. They're unconscious about how that is creating for them, how they're manifesting with their own words unconsciously. And what I want to
Yeah.
know is, what techniques do you use to help bring you consciousness to how you speak or to level up where you are. Um, yes. And I think that's the question that's really in my mind. How do we become more mindful of our intentions when we speak?
Absolutely. I love that question. And we're going to go into that and go, which some people might consider woo woo, but it's not. It's the future of how we can operate. So first of all,
Let's go
you
woo woo. I
reminded me.
love woo woo.
Let's do it. You reminded me of this. I keep seeing this popping up everywhere now. That quote that worrying is like praying for something you don't want. Right? That's
Yeah,
what you were doing when you were worrying and you were doing your footsteps. So
that's
it's
right.
like asking for something that you don't want. So you hit the nail on
Absolutely.
the head when you say, so how do I set the right intentions in the first place? So it's all day, every day that you're doing that. So while you're walking, you changed what your intention was. Before I get on a client call, I stop and set the intention for this call with this person. Before I walk into the boardroom, I
Yeah.
pause, practice the pause, think of where I want my head to be, what I want my desired outcome to be, what's my intention to contribute at this moment, so on and so forth. Personally, I meditate every morning. I like to talk about Amishi Jha. She wrote an amazing book called Peak Mind. And Vickie, I crack myself up when I think about this. It's as if I looked for a book that would bottom line me, like how much mindfulness do I need in a day? And anyway, ends up this darling woman studied this for decades and narrowed it down to 12 minutes. So there you have it. 12 minutes is the sweet spot. Good to know, right? Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. 12 minutes is the sweet spot. So 12 minutes a day. So I do a minimum of 12 minutes. The theory and the science behind it is that that's enough that you'll be able to draw on it throughout the day and pull yourself back to center and that place of mindfulness for the next conversation, for the next meeting, for what have
Wow.
you. And that's what dictates how well you'll choose your words, right?
Wow. This is so incredible. And I want to thank you for saying that. I literally have an alarm on my phone every single hour just to do that practice. And that,
Yeah.
believe it or not, helps my productivity immensely. But the becoming aware of your actions or how you speak, I just remember I'm 16 years old and this is the power of words. I'm 16 years old and I'm learning to drive. Now, my dad was a very rage driver. He was so aggressive. And if somebody pulled in front of him, he would yell and scream and flip him the bird and all the cussing would happen and rah, and it would throw me out of my body. I would get so scared, and he'd have behaviors when he drove that were unbecoming of drivers. And so I'm now 16 and I'm on my way to work and I'm driving and somebody cuts me off. And I reacted exactly like my father did. And I was cussing and the flipping of the bird. And then I said, wait a minute. I don't act like that. My dad acts like that. I don't want to act like my dad. That's terrible. And I pulled myself to center. And I
Mhm.
don't know at 16 how I was aware enough to produce that kind of response where I monitored myself, except that I did what you did, which is meditate. I had quiet times every single morning where I
Mhm.
centered myself. And to me, that practice of that 12 minutes. So I know, right? Wow, that's so exciting. 12 minutes to transform life through intention. And there's some part where you grow up, every kid grows up and they're like, I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to be like my mom. Well, as long as you learn to talk, speak, and act like they do, then you're going to become that. But aren't you interested in finding out who you are? I mean, aren't
Mhm.
you isn't there one part of you that how do you want to react or
Mhm.
not react or be
Mhm.
proactive about it? So I think this begins with calming yourself down a little bit so you can see how you're talking, how you're speaking. And I think the magic of manifestation. Now, let's say I'm going to go with middle management again. Whether you're a small business owner, whether you're in sales, whether you're in a corporate job, whatever you're in, somewhere along the way, you're going to want more productivity from your team. You're going to want them to do a little faster, be a little faster, etc. And maybe it's you got a big order in at a manufacturing thing, and you want you this is a big order. We have to get this out on time, and you have to make it so that the conversation you're having with them, they understand your intention without looking like you're trying to bullwhip them into producing more quicker, faster. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely. And
This,
actually,
this
where
is a
I
tough
thought you were
one
going to
for
go there,
me.
so I'm going to go there.
Yeah, yeah.
Pardon?
This
Yeah.
is a tough
So where I
conversation.
thought you were
This
going to
part.
go, it is because what we're assuming, not you're assuming, is that that manager is going to prioritize the well-being of the team. So the ability of the team to pause, be able to practice the pause and absorb the information that they're receiving. And so yeah, that's where it starts. So actually, Vickie, my most popular talk these days is how prioritizing well-being promotes productivity, right? And so woven in there are the word choices that the person uses. So this is on the manager, and I'm rolling out this thing feels like more to do, and it sounds like more to do. My key thing is to be tied to my intention and the values. So when I can articulate to the team, the doing of this serves either our mission, vision, or values, or a combination of the three, then everybody's pulling on the same rope. Then we have alignment. And so I'm going to choose those exact words. So I'm going to weave in the exact words of either mission, vision, or any one of the values, right? So let's say in healthcare, or on the service line that you were talking about, that speed product or quality product or what have you, I might be values. I might say we have an opportunity to enhance the quality of our product and therefore the customer service that we provide by doing this embracing this new format. I'd love to engage in a conversation about it. So I'm pulling them and then using the right words therein, right? So it's changing the mindset by way of choosing the words properly. But here's the thing. Here's another thing that you were really hitting on. It starts with that manager. If that manager isn't capable to go do that unless they have their own internal dialogue operating on all cylinders, which means they've had a mindful moment, they've centered themselves, and so it kind of all goes all the way back up or forward, whichever way, right? So it starts there.
God, I love this. I
Yeah.
love what you're saying, because I think that the influence that someone can have when they have certainty in their languaging and creating that trust and the self-care of the team creates a sense of community in such a way that productivity just kind of naturally happens over in itself. That's
right,
really beautiful what you said.
Yeah, because everybody's all in. They're pulling on the
Yeah.
same rope, and the rope being the values, the mission, vision, and values. When the team, the leaders, everybody is speaking about it. Take that another step further. When we reward and recognize someone, and in the book I talk about the right ratio. Some science says 3-to-1, some 5-to-1. I'm in favor of splitting the difference and calling it 4-to-1. So a 4-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. And so when I'm reinforcing that someone did something, I come to you to thank you for filling in on a shift last week or what have you, that I'm intentionally weaving in a connection to the values. So I would say, Vickie, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you filling in on the shift last week. It was a true commitment to teamwork, which is one of our values, or to collaboration or what have you. And so I'm continually weaving that thread through by way of how I choose my words, which that's how you get that alignment.
I'm like, this is beautiful because it's always that you can improve on that. And I think companies that do exceptionally well have
Mhm.
these things in place. Let me
Yes.
ask you a question about I want to switch gears to what you do for a living because I know that you go into these businesses and you set these intentions so you help them communicate better. The productivity goes up, their turnover rates go down, and these things like that. And I want to know for all of you that are listening that are business owners, and you're driving a car, you're listening live. If you're on iHeartRadio or Pandora, Spotify, relax. Everything that we're talking about right now is going to be in the show notes along with the links. And if you look at the scroll across the show in your time, you'll see where you can get a copy of her book. And it's at www.thrivingleadercollaborative.com/product/ the words we choose, hyphen in between them all, the hyphen words hyphen we hyphen choose. And is it on Amazon as well? Can you go on Amazon
It
and get
is.
your book?
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
think
Sure.
everybody
Yeah.
who really, if you're looking about what's coming and what's out there in the world right now, it has never been more important to level up your leadership in a way that maintains cohesiveness in your business. And that's only done through communications. You can't dominate your way through that. You can't push. This is a different type of world, and we're in this big transformation time. Terry, what do you do inside these companies that helps them have such better productivity and more job satisfaction with their workers?
Absolutely. Well, you hit the nail on the head there with the communication is key. It unlocks everything
Yeah.
that you want to succeed at in business. You've mentioned sales, you've mentioned like, productivity on the manufacturing floor, what have you,
Mhm.
healthcare, what have you. So here's the deal. It's all about culture. So communication drives culture and connection. So you're connecting with your employees on such a level that you don't have any silent or even loud resignation. You know exactly where they stand, and that's where your retention comes in. Is that you're asking the right questions, you're pulling in a little bit tighter, you're connecting with your mission, vision, and values. So, and that's what drives the culture piece, so that no one would even dream of leaving because they feel so connected to what's going on at your organization. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I pride myself, Vickie, on customizing, sort of meeting people where they are, because some people are way further along on this road than others.
Yeah.
And this is my orneriness as I age. I also like to say the fish stinks from its head. Like I said that on a radio, but it's true. So if the top leadership team isn't all in, then I feel like I can't help, right? So it has to be the senior
Wow.
leaders who can honestly say, we will take a deeper look at what we do, like my CEO at the hospital that I gave the example of, right? Fish stinks from its head. So if the senior leaders don't like, isn't that
Yeah.
horrible? I have like it's a horrible visual, but it
But it's
makes me think.
still the truth. It's still the truth.
It is. So nowadays I've gotten that degree of orneriness that allows me to say, look, if we're going to do this and it's going to stick, then there has to be a commitment from the top. And sometimes that means the
Yes.
the CEO, the top leader, needs to take a closer look at what they're doing. It's not, I don't have pixie dust or a magic wand. It's about really zeroing in and committing to the work. And so that work being a discovery of how everyone will be the ambassador of the culture, how well-being will be woven into everything and be prioritized. And then all of the leadership components from that. So the leader as a coach, and really being able to provide that feedback. And so that's what I do. I get in there and sort of look under the hood and say, what's going on here, and how can you excel? How can you take your organization to
Yes.
the next? Yeah.
Yes. I want to talk about this in more in depth because I think that some leaders have it's my way or the highway, or I talk just fine. It's you that don't understand, or you're not smarter. I'm telling you, this is the finest point, Terry. And I think one of the things that really helped me, I mean, really helped me, was Marshall Rosenberg back in
Mhm.
the early 2000s wrote Nonviolent Communication. And that single book changed my life because there is colloquial words that we use all the time that are mean and belittling and they're
Mhm.
belligerent and you don't mean to be, but because we
Right.
colloquially speak
Mhm.
that way. And what I noticed when I read Nonviolent Communication was I wasn't asking for what I needed. I wasn't
Right.
even interested in what other people needed. And what ended up happening is that single communication tool is the difference between low five figures and high seven figures. And if you're looking to
Yeah.
do that, that communication piece is exactly because everybody can finally understand. And what you said about it being the leader, I remember when, I was in college, I worked at a McDonald's and I worked for a guy out of Boulder who he created the Happy Meal and he was pretty good friends with Ray Kroc
Mm.
back in the day. And he used to tell me, he used to tell us all the time that there were certain things that he required of his managers when they were in there. And the number one thing was the way we communicated. And I
Mhm.
think I got a head start in life with his absolute requirement that we acknowledge people's efforts, that we spoke in a way that was uplifting. And, he was very clear about his instructions when you would get canned for speaking incorrectly to people or, you know, and I look
Right.
at the amount of productivity he got out of us based on that singular thing. And I never forgot it. I was like, productivity is in the communication. Whether you get
Mhm.
productivity in a gnarly way and everybody hates your guts, you're going to have high turnover rate because nobody wants to work for a jerk.
Right.
And this one thing about this metamorphose that you're talking about, every workplace around the world is transforming into what Terry does for a living. And that is creating, taking somebody and maximizing their potential through leadership and
Yeah.
communication. And the first person that it has to happen to is you. It's the leader. And if you're watching this show right now and you're thinking, I communicate just fine, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be left behind because these people working with Terry are already skyrocketing. They're reading her book. They're reading, what do you say when you talk to yourself? They're reading Nonviolent Communication. They are taking, your competitors are going to wipe you out through one thing, and that is the ability to communicate your message with your team. What's happening now? This is the new process that is happening in all of business, all of it. You will talk about everybody. The reason there was this great big resignation wasn't because everybody was communicated too well. And those companies that didn't have great big resignations communicated well to their employees about the future, what's happening, the possibilities, and was transparent. Now, the next place I want to go, Terry, transparency in business, transparency with your team, transparency with your consumers and things like that. When we communicate in that way, what are, again, I always go in threes. What are three things that will help a business? Like, let's say it's a business that had an emergency situation. And to me, the pandemic was that your
Mhm.
business was either considered, something that got to stay open or something that had to close.
Mhm.
And when you're looking at rebuilding now, because that's what we're in the stage of, rebuilding after the pandemic, and it is really rough for a lot of business owners out right there.
Mhm.
And as you get to the point where you're communicating that with the rebuild things, what are three kinds of things that can help the communicator
Mhm.
create a vision of, we're going to get through this, versus I need you guys to help us get through this or we might close. And I know that's intention. Do you know what I mean? The intention of the
Mhm,
leader.
mhm.
But what are 3 types of things that people can implement, so to speak? I know we're going really deep with this, but I have you here.
Yeah,
What's 3 ways that they
yeah.
can intend with their team to succeed and achieve?
Well, I love that
Can
you
you get
wrote that
that?
word in vision. Yeah, the vision, vision, vision. So start there. So to get beyond 2020, 2021 and close on what was happening, one needs to envision what the future is going to look like. So the individual, the leader, the owner should do that first and foremost, and then invite their team in. I'm actually working with an organization right now. I'm just, the energy is so great to think about so to leave behind, yes, this was horrible. And yes, business was down and we lost money and this and that. But we're not going to wallow in that. That's no different than saying, when you say, Henry Ford is coined this one, when you say you can't, for as long as you say you can't, you will be right, because
Yeah.
it's not until you say we can. So this is that time. We're
Yes.
transitioning into we can do this. And then the individual envisions it, that invites the team in to envision it, and then start setting some goals related to that going forward. So the 3 things would be: the leader creates their vision. What is it? Personally, professionally, what is it? They invite the team in, and then they blow it up even bigger for the company. And then lastly, that all communication then with this vision, and then if they have a mission statement and they have related values, all communication ties back to that. So now when they're speaking to clients and they're marketing and they're hiring new people, anybody else coming on the team, there will be absolute alignment with the mission, vision, and values, and within a
Yeah.
forward energy, forward thought process. And
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah.
possible. And then the world is your oyster, and you can excel and go
Yeah.
forward and prosper. So yeah, I'm glad that you asked that.
Oh gosh, I wanna, and we're getting toward the top of the hour. I may go a little over because this is so exciting for me to have you on here. I wanna know, because I think there's influencers out right now that are muddying our ability to communicate in a way that helps us manifest what we want to manifest, and that is media. And right now they have something called doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is when you're looking at, this is going to fall apart, this is going to fall apart, this is going to fall apart, this is going to fall apart. And then there's the media scrolling. And I'm wondering, how is the media influencing our communication, our manifestation, and our energies at work? Because some people come in and they work for somebody and they're doom scrollers and they believe that everything is a lying, twisted, it's going to fall apart in calamity. And they start talking about that in that way, or they have the habit of talking in that doom scrolling way. And it just kind of, it's toxic in a room full of people. And do you
Sure.
think media is influencing us, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, it truly is. So I have that with myself every morning, right? So here's I say it, I've subscribed to the New York Times, Reddit, this and that, whatever. I look and I say, I just pulled my phone up in my hand and it's Bill Gates, by the way. And whatever it is, I think, does this serve me, or will this serve me well? Will the going down the rabbit hole of this piece of information serve me well? And so that's what I'm interested in. Does it align with my values? Will it serve me well? And even when I'm in it, when I pick it up and I click on the link that I saw, I start to go down, I say, whoa, wait a minute. Does this serve me well? Does it align? Does it align with what I intended to accomplish today? So I'm thinking about that as I'm deciding what information I'm going to take on. I want to go back to what you said about the others. Touched on this briefly, and I cannot say this enough. I could say this all day, every day, Vickie, to anybody who will listen to me,
Yeah.
is the focus on the positive. And I'll tell you why. So, or on the wins. The value is in the wins.
Yes.
So if you were the person scrolling, and I noticed that, and I call you Eeyore, the person who's always like woe is me and it's all doomsday or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I might say in my one-on-one with you that happens routinely, or even when I pass by you on a given day, you're in that space. I might train myself to say, Vickie, tell me about something that you've read today that was uplifting. Or, I see you having a look on your break at some of the news. What inspired you? Right? Or how did what you read, see how I'm saying, tell me what and how? How did what you read this morning or before your break uplift you? So I'm
Yeah.
assuming now that you're going to read some things that will be uplifting, and I'm helping you move your focus to that. And that ties into too, like when we're meeting on a one-on-one and I'm asking you what's a win or what's something we can celebrate since we met
Yeah.
last. Once you tell me that, I can use that information going forward. When you're struggling with something, I can pull you back to this other thing you told me that went really well, and you went a little deeper when I said tell me more, and you exposed kind of why it went so well, and now we can use that
Yeah.
information going forward. So all of the learning is wrapped up in what's going well. So when you ask about the media, it's not that you can deny or abolish that there was another school shooting. Like we can't
Yeah.
ignore that, right? So I'm not saying you throw that out. I'm saying that you think about what you can do that's of value and
Yes.
what you to go deeper into this information. So I have one last fan of. I ask myself every day, what value did I bring? I'm going to ask that when I get off the call today, right? So when I was working in hospitals, I'd leave as a consultant, as a trainer. When I left the hospital, I trained myself. It's like a habit that you would create. When I pushed myself through the front door, before I got to the handle of the car, I would challenge myself to say, what value did I bring today? What was
Yeah.
my contribution? How did I lift up
Yeah.
another, so on and so forth. And I'd have that amount of time to contemplate that so that I'm generating those wins myself internally. And so once you live in that space, then you don't allow the media to pull you down, or you see straight away, you
Yes.
look and you go, not aligned, not aligned, not going to go
Yes.
there.
Yeah, and I think this is so important because right now we're moving to AI. And what AI is going to track is everything you click on, and it's going to send you more of that. So if you click on the fear, it's going to send you more of that. Now, what the key thing is, it doesn't make it the truth. It's not suddenly
That's
the
right.
truth because you see it there. It's more about what they know you're going to click on. And what happens now is the truth is obscured because they're sending you what you click on. What they want, the clicks, that's what pushes them up. So in order to do that, you're not actually getting fair reporting. You're getting manipulated reporting, bias reporting based on what you want and what you're pushing on. And I think your head game is going to get messed with if you don't do exactly what Terry said. Terry, I got to say, we're getting to the top of the hour, and I am so blown away by our conversation today. And I'm definitely going to have her back on the show. Definitely. So relax. But if you are watching this right now, the one thing I can tell you, if you want to make a difference in your life, a really transformational difference in your life, is go get her book. It's on her site and it's on Amazon right now. You can go grab a copy. It's Words We Choose. It's Words We Choose. It's written by Terry Short, common spelling, Short. And it's something that every person needs to read because it's about improving yourself through communications. And I'm talking about improving how you feel, improving your relationships, improving your wealth, improving how you manifest things, improving everything about your life comes around to, if you want to name it, you can claim it. But if you don't know how to name it correctly, then you can't claim it correctly. It'll come in obscure. So, what it is about your workplace right now, if you are a small company and you want to go to midsize, if you're a large company, if you're a behemoth company, the way you grow is to grow your people. That's it. The only way your business grows is to grow your people. If you want to grow the best people you can, you have to grow their ability to communicate with them, or you get to grow their community, their ability to communicate with each other, so that the culture can go ahead and lift productivity, lift ROI, lift quality and satisfaction of the job. And that's done by communications. This is why you want to invite Terre Short, into your world. Get her over there to teach your people these things that we've talked about today. Terre is spelled Terre, short, SHORT. And this way you do this once and reinforce it. And remember, you're the leader. You have to do this first. And when that outcome happens, suddenly you will be lifted up. I can promise you, I know that the jump from 4 figures to 5 figures to 6 figures to 7 figures surrounds being able to communicate. But 7 to 8 to 9 figures is having an entire culture that knows how to communicate well. So I am going to invite you to go ahead and go to thrivingleadercollaborative.com. You go to that website, get a hold of Terre, hire her to come into your building, get book and read it, and do yourself a favor. Transformation happens one step at a time. And here you go. You can see the summary of Terry's life at linktree.com, or no, I'm sorry, Linktree. It's Linktree, linktr.ee/Terre Short. Now, listen, everything you have is on the screen. It's going to be in the show notes. It's going to be here. The reason I am so absolutely, it's imperative that you do this is because I really know the path forward is about communicating to your people and the universe. Terre, it has been a mind blowing conversation, and I cannot wait to have you back. I really can't. It is unbelievable how skilled you are at getting human potential to be that great. So, what I want to tell everybody is that this has been the Coffee Break Show. And, I'm going to see you guys next week. As always, we'll have the best experts from around the world. Talk to you later.